In a small village in Lira, in northern Uganda, a joyous celebration is about to take place. A bride has come back to her home village to partake in probably the most important ritual in a Ugandan marriage, the introduction, or kwanjula. The whole village is invited to witness this colourful and vibrant spectacle. Many cultural dances are proudly performed, and many gifts are exchanged between all the members of the two families. But few Ugandan weddings take place without a certain degree of negotiation, ranging from simple requests for the bride's well-being to hard-fought demands for livestock and cash for the bride's extended family. So even while the celebrations continue, the bride price, or at least the livestock part of it, needs careful inspection. Then, in a nearby house, the families meet to check that a list of demands have been met. Amid the smiles, there is often a tension that runs through the meetings. Has the price demanded for the bride been paid in full? Lists are ticked, and careful records are kept. Envelopes of money are passed from hand to hand. Once the checks are over, the groom is formally introduced and welcomed to the gathered guests, and the party can really begin. In many cases, it ends there, and the couple go on to lead happy and healthy lives. But in a striking and worryingly large number of cases, bride price can lead on to misery, poverty, submission, and violence, which leads us to ask the urgent question, what price? Bride price. We travelled around Uganda to try to get a picture of what bride price has come to mean throughout the country and the effects it has. We first spoke to Florence. She lives in a village close to Tororo, in eastern Uganda, one of the poorest parts of the country. She was 17 when she first got married, and her husband was a neighbour. Her parents asked for 3 cows and 3 goats for her. But soon after their marriage, his character started to change.
Atandika kundekao ngaja kunania bakazi bandi ye mukobako ngatandika kunkuba ate nga ankuba akuba ndi alikuba mali ye akuba nte kuba baba yo yasasula nte zenga ndi awo nfumba ka hoteli yange ye mubuuza kunti banange sente tukola kano sente aye sente dijjaga awo sobola kumubuuza kuba nze nti amakuma kage sirina nzira amaani gona kumubuuza ekigemagana na sente ye nkola awo ku hoteli.
Florence tried to leave home and go back to her father's house, but her father said he had no cows to pay the refund. Usually, when cows or goats are paid in exchange for a bride, the livestock is distributed among the extended family. So if an angry husband comes looking for their return, it's nearly always impossible to get them back. So Florence went back, and the beatings continued. Eventually, despite having children, she tried to kill herself.
Nagula poison buno bwagundu. Mwena abayala limunumba yawuliranga eri kunya. Yaja yakobera mirwana mboyo yena anwirawo nankan poison. Aye ndikwenda afe. Awo mbaire nsala okufa kuba nziraga kutyama. Owaife tibali kwenda kumbona. Kubufumbo musada tali kwenda kumbona. Awo nasala okuba ndikamfe abaana bange baja kutandika kumbona awo kumakulu ya kumagombe nga nziraga kutyama n'abaana.
But she was rescued by her neighbours, and then she heard about MIFUMI, who help women suffering from domestic abuse.
Leeta omuguwa kuva mu kyalo MIFUMI n'omuguwa gwe yaida owaife mbu ali kwenda nte. Mpera naawo nze naalumuka bulumuke paka mu office nakuba nti bana musaada atuse owaife mbu ali kwenda nte. Abe MIFUMI kibakola bagema motoka na ni CRO na ba ne ba police by do wife ba kobera be wife nti omusaada nga alikwenda ntedde tim asoke agema amabere ga mwana gwa muwala waimwe ayemerere memale bamuwe ntedde awo musa nankani plani ya muvako.
Florence is a survivor, but is not enthusiastic about the prospect of marrying again. Kenneth Kakuru is a legal practitioner in Kampala and of considerable standing. He has a strong interest in human rights and was one of the lawyers who successfully argued against the proposal to outlaw bride price last time it came before the Constitutional Court.
What you call bride price, actually, in the dictionary, Oxford Dictionary, it is described as the practice of giving gifts for a bride in primitive societies. So, in the first instance, you have to describe Ugandans as primitive, and then also you have to describe bride price as a sale. Because you can't have a price unless you have a commodity, you have a buyer, and you also have a seller. There is no single tribe in Uganda in which the word bride price or whatever, the cultural word for the gifts that are given on traditional weddings, that has anything near, if translated, that would be equivalent to either a sale or a purchase. So I don't see how bride price then can be, because the bride is neither sold nor bought.
Is Kenneth Kakuru's argument mainly a semantic one? The dictionary of the Lunyankole tribe, which Kenneth hails from, indicates that the exchange is a price. So what do the words really mean?
Bride price is called okujuga. Okujuga is the mowing of a cow. So it is that they have brought cows home. So that is why, but it is not about bride and it's not about price. The family of the groom comes to the family of the bride and asks for a hand in marriage. The father said, yes, we'll do that. Then you negotiate. How much? How many cows? 20, what? All those negotiations that you saw. And then you end. These cows are used to buy, they are sold and used to buy items that the girl needs in a home. Kitchen, dining, sitting room, bedroom, bathroom, her clothes, everything. So because she has transformed from being a girl to being a woman.
It seems that Kenneth's argument works perfectly well for those middle-class Ugandans in good jobs in the cities who can afford to give the cows straight back to the married couple, who don't see the acquisition of cows via the selling of a bride as a valuable source of income. We moved on to meet Teresa from eastern Uganda. Teresa's problems are largely in the past, but the story of her marriage has left many scars. She was forced by her stepbrothers and stepmother to marry when she was just 15.
Paka wakishon mere ko nene ni nyako ite ko bedo page ni tundi orono e wachini ini tundi nyomro kidhi nyomre mi badho kwa sham kelo walim wa sham.
Teresa suffered particularly harsh beatings at the hands of her violent husband, all based upon the fact that she was somehow owned.
Ga gigi pin bedo sharp tende na shel mu o bicha anka o yang anka adole tieka. Akinyal wachori dhano alimulitu maduong' suwa to menya tero go chik to ng'wecho kago duoko timako go Jemo lawi gimogo je kirinyi kwaya je kaparani kisi gimoro je kaparan tawona penjere ni Awona panga e piny me. Kole kitabu malenga ke winjo. Gima damo miyo chwech. Ako miyo go jakur. Mana go ango.
Teresa eventually managed to leave her marriage, and her husband immediately demanded his bride price back, even though he forced her to leave her first children behind. After experiencing so much hardship, Teresa has since become an advocate for women in similar situations and is determined that her daughter does not suffer in the same way.
Jofuro chiemo ma jo nyalo chamo. Wege jofuro chiemo pa jo ma jo nyalo chamo. Odoko ka jo nyuomo. Wawegi wa jo nyuol gi jo nyuol. Nyuomo no bedi maber. Manya dhano gi dhano mungoye mbaka iye.
And she has been left with a very negative view of the benefits of marriage.
Akuongo nyuomerok. Akuongo nyuomerok. Gima nyuomerok otimuran. I couldn't tell anymore. I want a dong. I couldn't get in the paran. Can get paran.
Can it be right that so many women are now being discouraged from thinking of marriage as a positive step, that they are starting to feel that they are better off on their own? Back in Kampala, we visited a member of the Court of Appeal of Uganda, Mr. Justice Stephen Kavuma. He doesn't fully accept the concept of a price for a bride, but when it comes to the potential demands for refund, he seems quite clear.
If I give you a gift, if things will go sour, I don't, as of right, think I should come and say, hey, I give you a gift, you bring it back. And of course, that has the problem of looking at the girl as a chattel, as a chicken that you could take to a market and you say, hey, willing buyer, you are here, give me 30,000 and you take this. And I object to that. It is inhumane, it is antisocial.
It seems difficult to accept the concept of a refund without also accepting the existence of a sale. And as with many of the legal professionals we spoke to, Justice Kavuma separates domestic violence from bride price.
To me, that is just another piece of evidence of a criminal mind who wants to unleash violence simply because he thinks he's more masculine, you know, the poor girl is weak and the rest of it. But maybe in terms of trying to put up a defense, which many people may buy, I said, but after all, I pay the cows, and therefore this is my property.
Perhaps one of the reasons why women can so easily be viewed as commodities in Uganda is that polygamy is still perfectly legal. We met Orisa, a local politician, and his brother Owino. Orisa has just married his fifth wife, Magdalene Akamu. What are the advantages of so many wives?
When it comes to the number of children, I get more when I have more women. When it comes to development, when we go to the garden, we dig more area.
But Owino, Orisa's brother, is a one-woman man.
I paid 3 heads of cattle and 2 goats. When I wanted to add more, they told me, you're a very good man, you kept our daughters very nicely, you don't mind. What is remaining is your token, and that's how I'm comfortable.
On the other hand, Orisa hasn't yet paid for all his wives. Orisa's father paid for his first wife, and he has yet to pay for wives 2 to 4. And he seems to have come up with a kind of hire purchase agreement for his fifth.
My number 5, that one I've paid. I call it depositing, not fully paying. I've deposited 1 cow and 3 goats. Of recent, the father approached me. How about what remains? What are you saying? I say, give me time. This time, I'm going to clear it.
Orisa's mother, who is a very healthy 88, is one of 7 wives, and is a staunch defender of the culture.
ni oroma pirangwan gadeki.
So
Akaduong manyo mi padola miyo dhako woro picho, doko miyo dhako ridho picho, dhako kibed palus ngwen. Piringa ta konyuom. Meno chalo diang makutwei mawuotho wuotho.
And bride price for her is clearly not a gift, it's a payment.
Kwanyo nyathi piny tero malo, obedo gima duong' swa. Amito go miyagi chandro gi nyathi paran, choka akanya kaba sangala ni kere wiro konyan. Atundo imadala machamo chwepar.
Parents demand payment because when a girl marries and leaves home to settle with her in-laws, her family loses the value of her labour, while the husband's family gains it. We moved on to meet Immaculate, who was staying in a MIFUMI refuge. She originally married in Kisoko with a bride price of 2 cows. Now 29, she had just run away from her husband, who mistreated her and who has since been arrested and held in Tororo jail.
Idowa mare to akani ng'ango mo bedore go ichakro mnyago chocho dwa deki. Piri oduoko kama medhi ekoro ha unyo go wachra na wuok itinyo dak bero gi mara matimedi ma wuok to go ma ka to chako ywa gi tienda ni wada woko. Gima ido mi ana medo don kenyo ni da para ni ke kisho nyuwa mare kidok tim nedi ikat kamoro to mi ana abedo kenyo. Nota meda bedo gombe meda gana meno gana ga Koko gani akado anyalo kadho pesho awachore mama gi jupino ibedo kenyo amena meno kosa awachore tinyuol pere go wacho ni go doko kidhaw tero kada ndela dek doko go gan amena meno to tapina na nyuolo nyathi mara pena minya nyur mandelario to bino to gan gimbawo to god ndo para gimbawo nya nyur mandelario to kato to hikani ikew nke war no tena kondelo mako ida kedo wiachieng ni dwe mar 10 akedo penso to goduoko to gan to mako wiame je to fudu woko ni ida kedo to keto yer mere piny tapino takadho mufuma tie kisoko mi abalwa tiluongo go to go pino to wacho ni doko go kla daw timi wafonji to adok pecho.
She clung on to the marriage because of her children.
Ta wacho go ni ila daw de kiri kera ngo same watie gi nyithindo madonga pish meje ode mito ni dawe wachirani kimito
But the torments continued, and one night, after she tried to go to sleep, he came after her.
To kone ko mach to kwanyo kibiriti to bino gini diro Kenya to gwero kibiriti to bolo kapara nyamito nika mach wangane to kibiriti no mako nanga to ko gwero man dok to bolo to meno bedo ko mako ka to meno beto nyumara dek mere minyogo kido minyo shogwera nyath fara matin lo ngachra ni mama am to madho pi nyumnya am iyo nyath no pi to go ga man to chakre agango kodinanga.
His attempts to burn, beat and strangle her were the last straw for Immaculate. Finally she arrived at the MIFUMI shelter in search of refuge, but even here her husband would not leave her in peace.
Nyota tujukti kelan kome ta chakubedo ka ne shosho kandela ne shosho wika chiel mena shosho wika chiel mamande to go I walk pecho to bino ka to wachore watchman ni ka tie ginyamin amatie ka ilon ka bo machulet amito neno go to watchman be bino to penjan penyo gon ngato chal nedi wachora no bero judge masisi mashol ta penyo gon iluongo nedi to wachora ni nying giluongo no Chieng Patrick ta war go ni
The police were called and arrested her husband. But she is still incredibly worried about her children, who are stuck at her husband's home whilst he is in jail. They have no support. MIFUMI consider that at least 60% of domestic violence cases reported to them are bride price related. We spoke to Solomon, who works at MIFUMI. She never ceases to be surprised by the reasons men give for beating women.
Most will say, like from the east, most of them are really going to say, I'm beating my cows. From the north, where I come from, they're going to say it's a sign of love. Apparently, this is what I've heard. The women say if your husband doesn't beat you, it means he's seeing another woman. So everything you do is okay with him because he's seeing some woman out there. While on the other hand, if he beats you up, it means maybe he's noticed that you've annoyed him, or you've done something to the children that he doesn't like. So he has interest in your life and in what you're doing. So he beats you as a sign of love. Others think other men beat women because, he's the boss in the home. That's what he knows. He's the head of the family. He has a right to discipline. And then for some, their excuse is the Bible. Woman, be submissive to your husband. So if she's not being submissive, how do you get her to listen? Hit her.
We have seen that educated men in Uganda don't necessarily agree that bride price should be paid. But Solomon thinks that they still see women as subordinate to them.
Even the educated men will pay bride price, but you will still hear comments, the language they use when referring to their wives. It's very derogatory, and it still puts them on the same pedestal as the man in the village who thinks he's actually exchanging something for his wife, and it's not an appreciation. Men will say, oh no, women's families will say, oh, it's an appreciation. Men will say, it is actually not an appreciation, I am paying for your daughter. Although they will not say it out loud, because they know it sounds bad. But that, to the bottom line, that is it.
But perhaps occasionally, women play their own role in perpetuating the practice.
Because there are women out there who say, you haven't paid for me, you don't have the right to hit me. So men will also be pushed to pay because they know it shows I actually own you. That exchange, bride price, actually makes people seem more together than even the church wedding. When women have been married in church and no bride price has been paid to their families, they actually also say it. You haven't given my family anything. You can't push me around. You can't. Whether this union is before God or before Allah, you can't push me around. But if bride price has been exchanged, that is what makes the difference. I've come across so many women who say if a man can't afford to pay bride price, he's not man enough. If he cannot afford to pay the 8 cows my mother is asking for, he's not man enough. He will not be able to take care of me in the marriage. I've come across girls who say if the man cannot pay what he is being asked to pay for now, then where is my future with this man? We are going to starve. Our lawmakers are human. For instance, there was a time we were at an exhibition, and there were a number of members of parliament. But the first thing they told us was, you MIFUMI women, you're the people who don't want to get married. I have paid bride price. I paid bride price for my wife. How am I going to sit there and not get rich, don't get cows, yet I have 5 daughters? It doesn't make sense. Now, if a member of parliament has such an attitude, I'm sorry to say, such a law is really going to take a really long time.
It seems clear that bride price is being used not as a gift, as some people would have you believe, but as a commercial transaction. The young bride has become a valuable commodity who can bring a valuable source of income to an impoverished rural family. With current market prices at approximately 500,000 shillings or $190 for a cow, it's no wonder that we see ever younger girls being married off. Juliet is only 14. One day, she came home from school and found strangers in the house. Juliet is clear why she thinks she was about to be married off. She found out later that her potential husband had offered 1 million shillings for her. She managed to hear about MIFUMI and is currently taking shelter in one of the refuges. Whilst there, she helps entertain the children of mothers who have come escaping domestic violence. Eunice has a similar story. We found her, having just arrived at Soroti police station, seeking help. She was sent off to be married by her uncles as soon as her father had died. She wasn't attending school, and they decided she would be a useful source of income. Almost immediately, she was forced to go to her new husband's home, a man she had never met. Fortunately for Eunice, her husband did not force himself upon her, even though he had paid a lot of money in bride price. However, he has made it very clear that he wants his bride price back. With her relatives insisting that she either returns to her husband or marries someone else who is in a position to refund, she is currently condemned to a life on the run. While we were at the police station, we took the opportunity to chat with the all-female staff.
On my side, I think it is a problem because we have never handled the cases concerning domestic violence that comes because of that blood price, where women are mistreated because they've paid dowry. So I feel that thing should be abolished completely.
And they have also reached their own conclusions about whether bride price should ever be refunded.
A woman has stayed with you for quite a long time. She has been doing a lot of work at home with you. She has produced children. Why should they give back the dowry?
When women leave abusive relationships, it can have severe repercussions for their families. Opendia Jay's daughter left her husband after just a few months. He would do no work himself and treated her like a slave. She was forced to do everything for her family. Eventually, she felt she had to leave.
To go bino to timora report kapaka nyarano eye go mito lim. Tawachiro gon lim ini mito chi miane na or atieko oro.
Opendia Jay's daughter found a new husband with whom she had children, but her first husband continued to insist on a return of his bride price.
Tawachiro gon anyalo kwang kuma dako perni iye imake chwore boli jera oduokri doki.
The new husband had no money, so the burden continued to fall on Opendia Jay. He was arrested, and whilst in jail, Mainly due to bribes made by the first husband, he was forced to sign a document agreeing a refund of the bride price.
Onyo hongo majo maka jo tere na bioga. Minyo emito na ye ket chingan maduoko diang. So kenyo aminyo foda kwero. Ti wadon jera ti gaki boka par gario. Komoko aker tienda me.
Having been beaten into signing the document, he was released. But as soon as he left the prison, he went on the run because he knew he could not afford the refund.
So minyo ringo waka mali malito madit swa tek. Minyo ana ringo waka. Duong mere onyo koro. Sama chiemo ango giemo tire. Anantie bede pa ji kosa padano. Ka bedo endelaria deki kosa dwe. Koria ma doka kore kaman. Ameno. Kenya mawinje lito swa tek. Straight jola oma. Sane ranga mapagi moro worgo di chieng. Police re woto pecho ka osir kale woto ka e gagara simo gikoro wacha ni kiri duoki. To kelo rachande makiri nyithindo nyoye jo soma. Akinyalo nyer jo uniform. Akinyalo nyer jo nangaruka. Kitaba akinyalo nyer jo. So nyo. Paka jon tiama paka ana banti. Gichandu madit makiwache.
There are precious few who are prepared to speak out about bride price, but Miriam Matembe is a former minister responsible for ethics and fighting corruption and a co-draftee of Uganda's 1995 Constitution. She is convinced that the persistence of bride price is because women are not being recognized for what they are.
Both men and women do not know who a woman is. And that is the reason why they treat her as secondary class citizen or as rubbish or something like that. Because they do not know that women are full human beings in their own right. Society does not know the potential, the talents, the wisdom of women, and it does not know that the denial of their ability to realize their potential is the denial of Uganda's development. The girls themselves, for instance, who are not educated like me, who knows that I'm valuable without attachment to bride price, they still attach their value to bride price. I remember very, very well when I was growing up, I had an aunt, my father's sister. She used to be battered and violated by her, I think, vagabond husband. And many times she would run home to come for rescue. And after 3 or 4 days, my father, unfortunately, would turn against her and say, "You are useless. You are useless. That's why your husband chased you away." And my aunt, and I was young, about 7 years, she would pitifully say, "I'm not useless. I produced sons for this man. I'm not useless. I brought in bride price in this home." And you know, that answer really struck me. It's one of the things that inspired me to go and fight against gender inequality. Because it showed to me that my poor aunt, and of course generally many women whom I was seeing suffering in the village, knew that they had no value. But they are only valuable when they bring in bride price and when they produce sons. Many times when people talk to me of this is our culture, I tell them we cannot afford to live in a cultural museum. I mean, customs, there are so many customs and cultures in this country, ranging from or differing from culture to culture, tribe to tribe, which really are harmful and they injure women and they undermine their humanity. But the biggest asset or weapon that will help us decisively do away with the bride price will be empowerment of our people in terms of formal education, where both men and women get education, they go to school, they get their degrees, they get jobs, and they work. And therefore they have a say. In this country, there is nobody who doesn't know that domestic violence cuts across every ethnicity group, every culture, every generation, every educational level, Let me tell you, some women members of parliament in Uganda are battered, they are thrown out of their homes, they are tortured, they suffer. Who doesn't know about domestic violence? The vice president, our former vice president, Kazwe, when she was so tired, she went outside publicly. She declared to this whole nation that her husband has been battering her, and she's tired and she quit. In November, my second son went to marry. I told those people, me, I don't like bride price. And I told him, you know, I don't want it. So when they came, we negotiated and they said, okay, no bride price, no bride price. Then down the road, they said, okay, we want the following gifts. So many things, too much. We said, but hey, this is like turning into a bride price. And my husband and I put our foot down. We said, no, we are not going to take that. And in the end, we said, if you insist, we shall cancel the marriage. But eventually, we got together and we came to an understanding, and the bride price we never gave bride price. So many people, when they stick to their guts, they can do away with it, you see.
On our journey through Uganda, we met some very brave and strong women who have endured and come through to a brighter future. Doreen is one of them. Her story has a happier ending than most. After the by now familiar story of violence and rejection, she lived on the streets for a while, begging for food for her children. But she actively tried to find herself another husband, and this time she seems to have found a good man.
Pitie mere wanu pura doli ya teaching amichuani weka kede ya oti poto kena araba tuwede koriama oti poto bala macha arabe gira ma puro deko kwanyo deko chato lieti mi penyo tuwero ibuta bo chat gino konyiri kidara muket go chati ter kedati ni duali rara uniform go mite ready poli oti office kono e kwanyo deko mina omia gena dide dingyo be etwero ber podi dada rango.
However, her husband still clings on to some traditional values.
If you have not paid the bride price, it's just like you are staying with that woman illegally. But when you present that bride price, then it is legal now that is your wife.
Her husband may be a man with a more modern outlook, but he is fairly traditional when it comes to knowing who is in the right.
Most cases, she could be on the wrong. And you know, with the women, maybe if they are tired, that's when they can just chop wires anyhow. Then for us husbands, you have to say, leave her peace. But I'm always, you know, I'm a reasonable, to me, according to my judgment, I'm a reasonable man because I hate beatings and this. But I hate beating, but I can rebuke. And that is where I ends.
Very few women would feel empowered to challenge him. In Kampala, we went to another member of the Court of Appeal, Mr. Justice Amos Twinomajuni. On a tribunal of 5 judges, including 2 women, he was the only one who stood for making bride price illegal in Uganda.
Originally, it was supposed to mean security for good behavior. If I marry your daughter, I am supposed to give you something to ensure that I look after her well. Also, it had the opposite effect of ensuring that the girl will behave well during the continuance of the marriage. But as of now, it does not mean that anymore. It is a price that you pay in order to get somebody's daughter. And it is refundable. And I don't think it is a good thing anymore. Gifts, yes, they are quite perfectly okay. I've written a judgment in the constitutional petition in which I have argued that gifts are commendable, are acceptable. But the bride price in which parents demand and get paid, and where a refund is expected when the marriage breaks down. To me, I don't think it is no longer justified.
Justice Twinomajuni and Kenneth Kakuru both come from the west of Uganda, but their interpretations are quite different. Kakuru says that his culture proves that bride price does not exist. However, Justice Twinomajuni is convinced that it certainly persists throughout the rest of Uganda.
And the judgment I have talked about, Kakuru made a submission there before we made a judgment. I don't agree with him, though we come from almost a similar culture. He is not being realistic. That is what used to happen very many years ago. But today it has become bride price in the English sense. You see, they are selling.
Justice Twinomajuni even suspects that Kenneth Kakuru is not being entirely honest about what goes on in their own culture.
I and Kakuru, we come from the same culture. We marry from them, they marry from us. I know what they do. I know that at the moment, even when they exchange gifts, that is for public consumption. Behind doors, bride price has been paid. In many cases, bride price has been paid. Today, in educated people, most people like me, I don't think I would demand bride price of my daughter, but I would not reject gifts from my prospective sons-in-law, but I would not demand for bride price today.
We asked Justice Twinomajuni about the reasons why bride price still exists. He feels certain that the problem begins with education.
Generally speaking, men don't like to educate their daughters to say beyond Form 6, because by that time the girls are beginning to grow some breasts, and it is high time that bride price came in, because they have been waiting for it. So they don't want to keep them at school. After Form 6, they know how to write their names and read, so they can now wait for the next man who will bring the animals. You see, the poorer I am, the quicker I want it, and therefore the more easily I want to remove the girl from school so that I can get it as quickly as possible.
In the recent Court of Appeal, 4 out of 5 judges rejected a change in the law because they said that the existence of bride price had not been proved to their satisfaction.
My difference with them is that I know I'm a Ugandan, I've lived in Uganda society, I've practiced law in Uganda society, and I know, and it doesn't have to be proved to me, that bride price is taking place. And that's why I said bride price, as I understand it, to me, I said should be declared unconstitutional.
Bride price has been a part of Ugandan culture for many years, but maybe attitudes are beginning to change.
Tusobola kabiri kufumbira kuba ntandika atya kibiri kufumbira baje kabiri batandika ole yena atandike kunkuba kulwa mali ate nga nze ndi kumaka gange nga nze mwene n'abaana bange kabiri mfumbira ki.
My father thinks the appreciation you can give him is take care of his daughter well. That is appreciation enough. There's nothing you're going to give him to replace me in the home, for instance. I'd love to hang around with him and tell stories. No cow is going to replace that.
Woto, Dongo, Samsago, you could be pung dog redana packing you one ama.
Inyako ai ki dinyo mere ayin to ai ni nyo mere tikini angni ngatu bedo kishi ko so bedo pino etingo dan manyalo nikini sa moroje.
You give a gift, it is a gift. Don't come for it because things have gone sour.
If men know they're not going to get it back, they're going to be so against paying it in the first place.
You can't take somebody's daughter, produce 10 children by her, stay with her for 40 years, then you expel her and you expect a refund. It's in any culture, in any civilization, however much you might even want to call it primitive, it doesn't make sense.
it used to be a useful and beneficial culture, but because it has been abused and manipulated, it promotes domestic violence, and in fact, it has lost its value and it should be abandoned.
If Uganda is to move forward as a leading African nation, it cannot afford to treat half its population as commodities. Isn't it time that women were not bought and sold? That weddings were not places of transaction? Many people in Uganda continue to insist that bride price is merely a gift, but they seem to be concentrating on only those people in the country who can afford to see bride price as a gift. At village level, brides continue to be treated as little better than cows, bought, sold or haggled over, a means of pacifying demanding relatives, and, like cows, they can be beaten and commanded, and sometimes even destroyed. A continuing evil in this country is the persistent belief that bride price could and should be refunded. As long as this continues, women will never be safe from the sometimes violent whims of men, who can still marry as many wives as they like, who can throw women they are tired of out onto the streets, and who can ignore all the work, love, and nurturing that women provide. If Uganda is to be a modern, relevant, and important African country, then its women and its brides should be seen as treasures to be cherished, companions to be loved, and above all, held equal with men in education and treatment. Let us by all means celebrate marriage and exchange gifts, but such gifts should never be seen as payment and should never be demanded back.